Welcome to another edition of Rick and Bubba University. No Professor Bussey this week. Bubba has been called away, but he should be with us on the next Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. You know, we are on the main show that happens Monday through Friday. Check rickandbubba.com if you're not familiar. Some of you only know us from this podcast. I didn't realize that, but that threw me a little bit. But go to rickandbubba.com. But we are finishing the final year, 31 years of the Rick and Bubba show. And so we're looking back and we're celebrating so many things and so many memories. There's so much to celebrate, so much to be grateful for. Well, if you go back through the many years of the Rick and Bubba show, you'll see one name that shows up kind of peppered throughout the history, and that name is Scott Dawson. Scott Dawson is our guest on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Scott, welcome back.
It's good to be back. I was just sitting here going, when I surrendered to ministry, I never thought that I would be the highlight of so many pranks or weird situations in your and Bubba's life. I mean, it just seems to be there.
So Jesus taught us to be as gentle as a dove. And then the part that we sometimes struggle with, that he uses a serpent as an analogy. And he says, but be as wise as the serpent. Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, that in the world but not of the world is an interesting walk. It's very difficult. Peter warns us about that in 2 Peter. He goes, hey, now you better start supplementing to your faith all these things because you're in for a battle now. Have there been moments throughout our friendship, let's just talk about it openly, where you thought, I like having access to this platform. It is good for the ministry. But every now and then were there days that you sat alone, maybe with no one else around, and thought and went back to the Lord again and said, are you sure I should be associated with these people?
Without any doubt at all. Right. Absolutely. The things that happen outside what people know on the show, it's just as weird and as zany as what they do know that's happened to us over the last 7 years we've been together. That's crazy.
You can't remember the number of times, and I love one of your, I think, better messages is that message of, it's wonderful to have testimonies of God delivering you from the miry clay or delivering you from a horrible life, but it's also a great testimony to say he kept me out of it.
Yeah.
And so yours has kept me out of it. Mine was delivered from it. And sometimes my friends and my wife will have to say, Scott was never in it. You forget that. And you're dragging him along at a pace, and you're exposing him to things that he really has never been exposed to. Be careful. I really get kind of be careful with Scott. And not that, you're a tough guy. You can handle anything. You've seen a lot of hard things.
I have to.
But sometimes I'm reminded, be careful with Scott. Sometimes you're careless with Scott.
Yeah, the one everyone knows about. The one that everyone knows about is the four-wheeler.
Right.
I mean, it was a day that's supposed to we at the lake fishing.
Right.
You set it up beautifully.
Sadly.
I give you props.
Sadly.
You and the crazy man, Gary, who we all know is a sworn enemy of mine.
Right.
If I had won the governorship, the first act on day one, he was an enemy of the state. He would be put away. We'd never see him.
You can't even live in Alabama no more.
No, he would be gone.
Right, yeah.
So we got down there, and everyone knows in fact, what's amazing to me, I've had the privilege of speaking to over 3 million people face to face, sold over 150,000 copies of our book. But wherever I show up, people go, hey, you're the guy on the four-wheeler, Rick and Bubba show, aren't you?
I know.
It happens every time. Showed up the other day. This happened what? 10 years ago?
Something like that. Yeah, it's been a while.
I showed up a couple of months ago. They had my parking space. They had a four-wheeler in it.
Oh, so it never ends.
Oh, it never ends. I'm telling you, it happens every denomination, every part of the country. People love the four-wheeler story.
Well, and that was one of the moments, and we talked about this on the big show this week, is one of the moments that I remember about that, and is that we all did the prank. It got out of hand. Everybody knows about that. We put you in unnecessary danger, and I've owned all that. But we wanted to move on a little quicker than you did, And that goes back to when my wife was sitting across from me, and she was almost like this moment of clarity. Would you like for me to possibly see if I can't shed some light on why Scott didn't move on as quick as you and Gary? And, of course, Mark Garnett.
He lives for it.
He's been on the show. I mean, you can't put him in the normal category. And so she, well, you can't. And she said, could it be that he had a hard time moving on because he nearly died? Could it be that he thought you had been shot? Could it be that he thought he was in
lost my best friends?
Yeah, right, and had maybe been in the crosshairs of a mad gunman? Could any of that been the reason that Scott didn't move along to bass fishing as quick as everyone else? Yeah. And I thought to myself, well, that's a great point. So I apologize for that. Yeah, but it's all good now. But as you saying, you can't shake it off. It's everywhere.
Oh no! In fact, if something happens to my memory, I will forever remember it because of the calcified bruises on my shins that are still there to this day.
You know what? That's almost, you know how some people tattoo themselves for memories? I want to always remember this person. You've got one that is naturally made. You know, you didn't go ink yourself or anything like that or mark yourself. You actually were marked by the experience, literally. And you, every time that calcified, you'll go, yep. Oh, Rick Burgess, I'll never forget him.
Paul in Galatians 6, I bear in my body the marks. He says of Jesus Christ, I bear in my body the marks of Rick and Burgess.
Yeah, well, going back to our friendship, I remember when we first met, and we had so many, you know, there were connections there immediately because, you know, and do you remember the year that was? I don't remember the exact year. So I became a follower of Christ in 1996. And I want to think that you and I met each other somewhere around 98, maybe.
Yep.
Somewhere in there.
Through Derryberry.
Yeah, and so I was new to the faith. So we've had a long way to go. And you know, but there was the thing that was so cool, and God putting you in my life when He did, is you were clearly a resource that I needed to grow spiritually, but you also were already set up to be the part of the platform that I wanted to do. I just wasn't discipled enough yet to do it. You know, in the early days, it was like, okay, well, I'll point to him when I want to use the platform to present the gospel. I'll talk about the things that are changing in me, but I was not equipped yet. I wasn't mature enough in the faith yet. And so it was really a gift early on in this platform, the Rick and Bubba Show, and my spiritual life. It was really a wonderful gift.
And to see your growth, I mean, honestly, I kind of go, man, he's so equipped now, he doesn't need me. I never hear anymore. No. There was a time you'd always call, hey, I need something. Come in.
Topic we need to talk about.
Now no one knows me.
Right.
But, you know, I always say, we had a pact. I was going to teach you how to preach. You're going to teach me how to use humor. I'm a much better teacher than you are. Let's just go ahead and call it right now.
You've had some zingers lately. You've had some zingers. You and I have done some conferences together. You know, can you see me out in the crowd every time I see a zinger?
I can hear your laugh. Right, your laugh is so distinct. Yeah. I can hear it everywhere.
I got that, honestly, from my dad. He had a gregarious laugh that would turn a room upside down. I do want to get into, we can continue to talk about some other things, but sure. I do want to kind of start moving into our main topic today. When we look at the state of the Western Church, it can be very confusing out there. And one of the things that you look at is when it comes to these people that feel a call on their life, they're trying to figure out what to do. And I heard, well, you know, Mac Brunson, our pastor. Were you there? Because I thought about you. If you had been there, I thought this is exactly what Dawson's talking about right now. And he said that he was talking because he goes and he's kind of a pastor's pastor, and he goes and talks to young aspiring pastors. And he said the thing that was troubling him a little bit, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he said, I keep talking to these young pastors, and they all think they've been called to pastor a megachurch. And he said, so none of them. If you look at our industry, the old days of our industry, the way I came into the radio industry was you took on a part-time job on the weekend. You then moved into an overnight job during the week.
Yep.
From the overnight job, you moved to nighttime. With them, that moved you to middays, to afternoons, and then if you could get to the mornings, you got to the mornings. But no one ever came out of training and said, I want to be the host of a morning show on the biggest radio station in town.
Yep.
No one had that attitude. And so because we knew that probably wasn't wise. And he says, I'm seeing, and now that's one topic, and that's not exactly what you're dealing with, but it creates what you're dealing with, is these churches are looking around saying, where's my student minister? Where's my worship leader? Where's my, they all got to have a production ministry now. You better have a media guy.
Yep.
And they don't really know where to find them. And the ones who want to do it, there's such a need when you go down the old school road of I got to go off to college for umpteen years before I'm even ready. You've kind of looked at that issue, and you guys are taking it head on.
Yeah. Well, first of all, what we do, our front line of defense is student pastors.
Of course.
In fact, and where would we all be without a student pastor in our lives when we were young? And we started looking at the drought that started happening. We couldn't find them. We had churches calling us, going, hey, help us. It got up to about, I'd say 60 churches that we were looking for that we couldn't fill the position. And I said, something's wrong. This has been about 3 years ago. And we started looking at what happened. Now, I'll just give you the landscape. Just like how you used to rise up in the media, the way it used to happen is that you would start out in a very rural, small area. You'd do the best you could, and then a little bit larger church get you, and you have $1,000 in your budget, and you'd think, man, what am I going to do with all this money? And then eventually, the larger churches would call you, and there would be that staircase. Well, some things have happened. One, you had the birth of the megachurch. And they would come in and they would need interns. And so they would find these smaller churches, bring raw talent in, give you a latte and a MacBook. Well, you're not going back to a small church. You've already experienced too much. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you what's happened.
Of course, I have a deer hunting analogy here. It's like taking and I'll caution dads to do this, taking your kid out to a place that has some of the biggest deer in the country. The first time they ever went deer hunting,
you've ruined them.
And the first buck they ever see is like a 160 class deer, and then they take that as their first deer. Now you're going to take them to a little farm where basket rack bucks are bouncing around. They're not interested in that.
Oh no, they'll never go back, or they won't find contentment going back. So then the second thing happened was the church planting era, where we are trying to plant churches everywhere, and we'd send youth pastors into seminaries to learn how to be a youth pastor. They'd come out and be a church planter. Then the final thing is the birth of the single church with multiple campuses, campus pastors. Yeah. And I just say, where are you going to find a campus pastor? You're going to go to a youth pastor. He knows how to speak in public. He knows how to draw a crowd together. It just works hand in glove. Now, I want you to hear me. I'm not saying any of those things are bad. No, those are great.
We're just talking about it's creating a need.
It's just created our drought of having youth pastors. Then we found the math problem. A math problem is that if you go get your bachelor's and a master's, you're talking about $175,000 financial commitment. The average starting salary of a youth pastor in the state of Alabama is $37,000. Now, that's the beginning. I tell everyone, it's a seller's market. You do your job well, and there's a trajectory that's unlike anything else because people are dying for youth pastors. They want their youth pastors. They just can't find them. So let's find out what happened when we come back.
Yeah, so there's the problem. And now we're going to talk about what I believe is an incredible solution that was given to you by God. When Rick and Bubba University, the podcast continues right after this.
This is the Rick and Bubba Show. Watch more at blazetv.com/Rick and Bubba. Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
Scott Dawson, our guest, we were just talking about the problem that has been created. There's a need, and so now we've identified the problem, we've identified how it was created, and now we need a solution.
Yep. Well, for an evangelist, you know, I tell everyone, I am an evangelist. I'm not leaving that. But we have to develop evangelistic ministers. We have to people who know how to actively share their faith. So what we started doing was designing, I'm going to call it a trade school for leaders and from the second chair. We're talking about youth pastors, worship leaders, technicians, and also starting next fall, children's ministers.
Oh, really? You're telling me news today. I hadn't heard that yet.
Things are happening almost on a daily basis.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So what we did was we started devising it how we can get rid of the theoretical and make it all practical. Now, I tell everyone, if you're called to be a senior pastor or a church planter, there's so many options available to you. I not to say I don't love you and help. We're doing everything we can to assist you, but this is designed from leading from the second chair. And so the first year, it's all practical. I'll give you an example. We've scraped away all the biblical languages classes. I've had 4 years of Greek, 5 years of Hebrew. So instead of going through that labor of love, that I've forgotten most of that stuff, we've bought them a software package that has the languages already installed. So every student gets one of those. So, and it's even better because with 3 strikes of a keyboard, it pronounces the Greek word for you. That's the hardest thing in the world.
Well, yeah, and I realize, I want to be sure, I think we skipped a step. We're talking about the institute that you have just developed. I don't think we ever even said that. We're talking about what you do at the institute. What you guys did is you've developed the Strength to Stand Institute to solve this problem. Now we're telling you how the institute works. We missed that whole part.
I'm going 50 miles per hour just to catch up with you.
The Strength to Stand Institute.
Yes.
You guys have an incredible facility. And when you were gifted this facility by God's hand, it was, why are you giving us this?
Yep.
And then you begin to see the need that we've identified. And now you're addressing the problem with what you said, this trade school for leading from the second chair is called the Strength to Stand Institute.
Yes.
Now you're telling us how it works.
And I would say one clarification is that we were starting this and we needed some more space. I didn't know the Lord was going to give us 203,000 square feet of space, which is a story in and of itself.
Right. And of course, my pickleball idea, where I think you can make a lot of money there. But anyway, so so let's go back. A lot of square footage.
A lot of square
footage. But the beauty of almost God, sometimes he's subtle, sometimes he's not. And in this particular case, so those of you that are listening and watching to this, the building literally had classrooms in it.
We can train 600
Literally
people.
had classrooms in it.
For 600 people at one time.
Right.
I mean, we have not moved one wall. It comes in, it has dual fiber optics into the building, dual generators. It has a triple chiller, so you're never going to go without heat or air. I mean, it's just the Lord provided it to us. A company donated it to us, and it's not one of the top Christian companies. This was a secular company that just, how the Lord worked it all out. And then 10 days after we moved in, an EF1 tornado hit us broadsided. So the Lord went, not only am I going to give you the building, I'm going to give you the money to start the renovations for it. So we got launched last fall with a focus group. We wanted to kind of iron out the wrinkles. So we brought these 4 in. There were 4 of them that finished. And so they've gone through the first level, and now they're starting into the second level. What I tell everyone is the first year is in the classroom. Very practical. We talk about we talk about Old Testament, New Testament surveys. We talk about the major doctrines of the church. We don't get into denominational specifics. We want the local church to do that. In fact, I've learned you're not going to learn everything in 1 year in a classroom. I think that's ministerial arrogance to think you can even go away for 3 years and learn everything. You have to be a lifelong learner.
Right.
That's where we're giving you the platform.
Yeah.
So as you're getting into the classroom, learning practical leadership, ministerial leadership, personal holiness, it's built on 4 pillars. It's built on a calling because our theme is it's for the called, for the church, for today. I want everyone to know we're not starting a college. We're not even starting a seminary. This is a trade school. If you can get to college without a financial burden, man, I want you to go and pursue. This is for people who really feel called to ministry and ready to get out on the front lines. They have a call of God upon their life. In fact, we give a distinction between peacetime and wartime. In peacetime, that's how we used to do theological education. You'd go away for 7 years, you become robust in theology, you could argue with the best of them. But when our country's at war, our armed forces have a rapid deployment. That's what we're doing. We're getting them out on the front lines.
Oh, that's a good word.
As quickly as possible, and also equipping them to carry out the work. So it's on the calling. Our theme is for the called, for the church, for today. The second thing is, we want them to have character. Now, understand character is built from within, but to create those guardrails in your life that you're not going to sway one way or the other. If someone wants to sin, you can be in every accountability group and go through every class under the sun. But what we're trying to do is bring accountability around you and some guardrails so that young men and women can make right choices in their life. We want them to have conviction. We want to teach them a biblical worldview, that they can stand when the lights are hot and the mics are on, that you don't whimper down, but you stand for the call of God upon your life. And the final thing is competency. We want them to be good at what they do. We're not trying to teach you a lot of abstract theories.
This is application when you're really doing the job, and the church has called you. You have been affirmed by that. This is what it's really going to be like to be there.
I'm so passionate about it that I hope it's coming across that going, I believe.
I like to see you slow down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you're fired up.
Well, I am, because I know of the problem we have. We've identified 30,000.
There's an urgency.
There's 30,000 openings right now in small to mid churches that we feel like we can't even find. We can't change it overnight, but give us 5 years. We're going to see this tide turn of evangelistic ministry.
Well, I look at this and I see the programs, student ministry, worship leadership, production ministry, and coming soon, children's ministry. Mm-hmm. When I see production ministry, I think about my youngest son. He's exactly the person that you're talking about. Y'all just didn't have the institute then.
Right.
He's exactly the person. He's stuck in this 4-year college. He knows what his gift set is. He even seems to have some clarity on what God's calling him to do. And he calls me and says, do I have to stay here? This is literally delaying me answering my call and starting. And my quote was, you can't come from that 4-year college back to my house. That's a no. If you go from that 4-year college to a full-time job as a production minister or in production, then sure.
Yep.
Because he goes, isn't that why I'm here? I said, well, yeah, ultimately to be able to do your job. And so, see, you're set up, and he did. He got a full-time job. And
he's doing well.
And he's doing great. And it started out being the media person at a church because the need was so great. He was getting called like crazy. Now, did he learn more on the job? Could he have been better trained? Probably, but it wasn't available. So, but I mean, he's done a good job of picking it up, and he's doing fine. But boy, that would have been so valuable because he was trying to think, I need to go to something that's more designed and is focused on exactly what I want to do. And the options were just other 4-year colleges that were very expensive and far away. This would have been exactly what he would have done.
Yep.
He would have turned around and said, I'm going to the Strength to Stand Institute, and I'm going to get the training I need, and I'll be in the workplace. And how long is the program?
Well, it's 2 years. 1 year in fact, for production, it's 1 year because we can't keep them. I mean,
right, there's
literally,
such demand.
It is the highest number of needs we have. I love the podcast because I think I'm so trained in the radio. I know you're going to shut me off because of a hard break coming up.
Right.
And I know there's one coming up.
Yeah.
But at least.
I mean, we are literally, we're 30 seconds from one.
But I'm used to it.
Yeah.
What we'll talk about is the financial implications of this, how we're making it economical for every student pastor.
And we'll do that when we come back when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast continues right after this. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Patriot Mobile. This is that dilemma. I mean, I'm in the culture. I need this service. I don't like supporting things that I find to have a moral objection to, or maybe I just have a political objection to, or both. And so when it comes to wireless service, you know it, I know it. Before Patriot Mobile, you looked at these providers, you're like, these are some of the most liberal companies in our country and in the world. But I got to have the service. We all have to have this. Well, you probably know this. You have a choice. Americans are tired and frustrated by stalling economy, inflation, endless wars, the relentless assault on our values, and companies like Patriot Mobile still believe in America, the Constitution, and we're proud to partner with them. They are on the front lines fighting for the First and Second Amendments, sanctity of life, our military first responder heroes. So take a stand for conservative causes by putting America first and switching to Patriot Mobile today. Now, you're going to get the same nationwide coverage as the big providers because Patriot Mobile operates on all 3 major networks. They're also going to be giving you service that is second to no one. They've got a U.S.-based team to help with customer service, and their coverage is guaranteed. So if you want to keep your same phone, your same number, fine. But if you would like to change those as you switch, you can do that too. Switching's never been easier. Okay? Go to patriotmobile.com/RickBubba, or you can call 972-PATRIOT. Right now, get a free month when you use our code. Just go to this URL, patriotmobile.com/RickBubba, or mention Rick Bubba when you call 972-PATRIOT. Scott Dawson is our guest. We are talking about the Strength to Stand Institute. We talked about the problem. We talked about how the Institute is addressing the problem. We talked about, the benefits of all that, the demand that's out there. But now people are wanting to know, what are we talking about from a financial standpoint? Absolutely. Yeah, so let's hit that.
Absolutely. I think it was Barner that said if something doesn't take place, we're going to reach less than 1% of this generation.
You're right.
I mean, and I love world missions. I'm all for that, but my heart is America. I mean, I'm calling America to Christ. So how we do that, get out on the front lines for this next generation. We started seeing a financial problem develop, $175,000 for education for a starting job of 37. So
that's bad math. That math doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. In fact, as a parent, I wouldn't be able to counsel my own my own child for that. So what we're trying to do is alleviate that. It does cost $16,000 a year for the program. But through what I've been doing since I was 18 years of age, I've been asking people to help us get this thing off the ground. And so we scholarship each student $10,000. So it costs $500 a month. Now, I would say, couldn't you make it free? If you make it free, they're not going to have any skin in the game, and they won't show up. We've tried that. We've tried a couple of different things. We feel like if $500 a month, a person can get involved in this program, in 2 years, you'll have a full-time position in a local church.
No, you're right. You and I do men's ministry together too. You've been kind enough to be part of our team at themanchurch.com, and you're exactly right on the free thing. And it bothers me. It really does, because I think to myself, your first thought is free should be it. But and I was trying to even tell these churches when they would have one of us come speak and they do a meal or something, and they were trying to do it for free. And the one that broke my heart was this church that was so excited. I mean, they were so excited. They started telling me all of our tickets are free, but you had to register, so they knew how much food to have.
Yeah.
Every one of them's gone. Hey, we don't have a seat left. We're going to have a huge crowd. We're moving it to a bigger venue.
Oh, no.
And they were doing all this. And what happened to all the people that grabbed those free tickets? Only about half of them came.
Yep.
And now we had a half-empty room. And those people were heartbroken, because what else did we have? Oh, this as an evangelist is going to drive you off the wall. People who wanted to come that were turned away because they thought they were sold out. And they weren't, because people took free tickets and then they didn't come. So that's your point. You don't help us when we think our classroom's full, and then other people won't in. We tell them we're full, and then about half of you don't show up.
Yeah.
So there has to be skin in the game.
It has to.
But it's very, very affordable compared to what you just talked about, $175,000.
Well, again, we don't think this is a cure-all. We think this is a launching pad for being a lifelong learner.
Right.
But I think from the last century, something's happened where ministry became a professional vocation. We were considered one of the hierarchies of those vocations. That's quickly changing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's the stories we hear or the changing society. For whatever reason, I think for the next 100 years, we're going to be missional in our vocation. And we're going to need to learn how to share our faith, engage with people, get out of our towers and get into the life of the everyday person. And that's what we're trying to teach them to do. It's got to be practical. You've got to be able to know how to do a parent-student meeting. You're going to have to know how to budget.
Yep.
You're going to know how to conduct yourself and how to present your case if you're trying to get more money in your budget or trying to get people to sign up for a retreat. These are things that student pastors know. So the cool thing about this is we only have right now a couple of full-time staff members. Everything is taught by practitioners. They're taught by people who are involved in the local church. These are youth pastors that range from churches running from 30 in their youth group to 350 in their youth group. So they get a wide variety. But the way I always say it is, if I train you only in how to serve in a one-style church, you're not going to be adaptive. Who knows where God's going to call you?
Right.
We want to prepare you that the methods may not change, but the message will never change.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying
Well,
to
a perfect example. I mean, even in our own country, if all of a sudden you're getting called and you've got an offer to go to California, or you have an offer to go to, say Jemison, Alabama.
Two very distinct places.
So honestly, and this, I know you're going to agree with this, the person going to Jemison has the harder job.
I agree, because they've been all vaccinated.
Yeah, it's cultural Christianity.
Yep.
So you would be getting that person prepared. He has to know how to navigate cultural Christianity. The person going off to California, if it's the right, unless it's that conservative part of California, which is a small part, but if he's going off to like a raging liberal California, my goodness, most of his work is just like an evangelist.
Yep.
There's no one there that's delusional that they are already been redeemed, but yet they just don't have any fruit. These people may be hearing the presentation of the gospel for the first time.
Yep.
I remember when Sherry and I were in San Diego one time and she presented the gospel to these teenagers, and they told her they never heard that before in San Diego.
Yep.
Now, that wouldn't probably happen in Jemison. Might now.
It happens now.
Well,
in the
now it
South.
might, but it is but to your point, I'm just trying to affirm what you're saying. You got to have them ready for. No two cultures are the same.
Right. We got to teach them how to share their faith, be passionate about that, and how to raise up leaders. Because as a youth pastor, not only are you speaking and ministering to students, you're developing a team that's going to continue to build the platform. We want to work ourselves out of a job to equip the people, the saints, to go and carry out the work. That's what we're trying to do at the Institute.
Yeah, you're talking about, that sounds like the scriptures. So let me throw this at you. And if you, I don't want to.
No.
You know, I've never drugged you into anything that was uncomfortable. So let's talk about. And I'm not, like you said, we're not here to say we're here to run down the traditional seminary.
No.
Now we are talking about facts about how much it costs and how long you're going to be there. Those are just facts.
Right.
And maybe that's what you do need, and maybe that is your thing. But I do want to ask this question, and I don't mean it that way. And I'm going to the one job here. Well, I guess it would apply to all of them, but mainly to the student minister. These young people you're facing problems in youth ministry right now. There's been some major changes on what these young people are exposed to, what they believe, what they've been told to believe. As opposed to maybe 25 years ago.
Yeah,
I'm not talking about that soon. Because remember, the show that I do Monday through Friday, that we're wrapping up our final year, and looking forward to the next journey on the next show. But in those 31 years, we started the show and email wasn't a thing. Only 31 years ago. I remember when Bubba introduced me to email, I had no idea what he was talking about.
Absolutely.
There were no websites. I didn't have a cell phone because I had not seen the real need for it yet. So these things have been thrown into fifth gear wide open. We've gone from I don't know what email is to AI in 31 years. Okay? So it's a whole different world. And I mean, I'm hearing people in youth ministry saying things like, I don't know how to deal with people who tell me they identify as a different gender.
Yep.
Identify as an animal.
As an animal.
As an animal. No, that's not made up.
No, I get you.
So what I'm saying is, I'm trying to say this the right way. I think in some ways the Institute, because it is so new and it was created now, may be able to equip them with how the world is today.
Yeah.
As well. I'm just saying that's also a nice advantage as well.
Yeah. And
I wish the world wasn't that way.
No,
but I mean, yeah.
And we're bridge builders.
Sure.
I mean, so I never want anyone to think we're shooting something down.
No.
You go where God's called you.
I'm just trying to talk to the person who's dialed over and said, somebody in my family, one of my kids, or myself, I feel called to this, and I'm weighing out my roads to get there.
Yep.
And we're just saying this is an option, and I'm letting you know why this option might be right for you. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, our theme is for the church, for the called, for the church, for today. We're not doing it like we did it 25 years ago for that exact reason.
Right.
Things have changed. That's the reason we're getting current youth pastors.
Right.
Because things change. So we're living in an instant generation. We've got to be able to address these situations with the never-changing message of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Because God has not changed.
No.
The gospel has not changed.
He does not change his opinion.
But
he
he
is
also,
down on record.
but he did tell us we need to be aware of the times we're living in.
Yeah.
So that you do need to be aware of that.
So that's where we're trying to really get to with the Institute, and I'm so thankful because we're also going to introduce STS Institute at night. I mean, I'm telling you, you know me, so I'm just going to put it out there. My first thought when we were developing this, I thought it was a great name, but evidently it's not. I was like, STS Institute After Dark. And I thought...
See, that's back to our original conversation. That's back to the first thing we talked about in this podcast. God love you.
I
God
thought
love
it was
you.
a great
I mean,
name.
God love you. You lived in because of the grace of God. You figured this out early.
When they told me about it, though, I was like, no.
Yeah, you don't want to make that the name.
No.
You really don't. No. There already is an institute using those letters. And hopefully no one's in need of it that's catching this podcast. All right, we'll come back. More of our time with Scott Dawson when Rick and Bubba University, the podcast, continues right after this.
This is the Rick and Bubba Show. Watch more at blazetv.com/Rick and Bubba.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.
We're back with Scott Dawson, we've got about 10 more minutes together. So once again, the Strength to Stand Institute is rolling.
Yes.
How is it going?
It's going really well. We did 4 in a focus group. They all are, I'll say this. I mean, we probably had one that we're still concerned about. So that refreshed us that we are not the cure-all. I mean, that gets us back to going, this is just one option. And again, people have choices in their life. We have 10. We launched in August with 10. Next year, we're preparing for 50. So
wow,
we're already
that's a big
growing
jump
in that type of increase. So the needs are great.
All right, so we have student ministry. We've hit that pretty hard.
Yep.
We have worship leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is something churches are having a hard time with. If you want to take, you realize how many times a church is turned upside down over the music?
Yep. Well, I'll tell you this. As a youth pastor, there's a drought. We can't find them. In a worship slot, that is the calling, because we've gotten in such an age right now where even young worship leaders are calling it a gig. I got a gig this weekend, or I got a gig this Sunday. And if one goes down, we've got a whole slew of them. We'll just get them up on stage. And so what is the calling of God upon your life to lead worship? And so we're so thankful. Michael Adler, who you and I, there we go.
It ain't going to get any better than that.
There you go. He's our dean, so he's full-time with us. He is there with those young men and women who are filling after that call of, I want to serve the Lord in the local church in the area of worship. And so with production, we've got production studios now where people can come in and learn how to do lights and sound and video. Because although you may not have a voice and you don't really feel like maybe God's called you to preach, we're all still called to minister. And maybe if you want to go into that direction, as we said earlier, it's the number one need in the local church.
Well, and we've all heard someone who volunteered at the soundboard and the Holy Spirit's not helping him. I mean, it's okay to learn that craft, okay, and not just say, I'll volunteer. We need that to sound good.
Yes, sir.
And then the other thing I would say, too, on the worship leader side, the reason why I think this institute is really important is now more than ever, these worship leaders need to have an understanding of the Word of God, which is going to be with anything you're going there to do. Because every now and then, I shouldn't say every now and then, more than I wish, some songwriter has cranked out the latest worship song, and it's theologically not sound. So if I'm a worship leader with no biblical training, or not good biblical training, maybe I don't catch it.
Yeah. I
mean, I know worship leaders that are so astute on the Word of God, if they have something that is volunteered or requested, they'll go look at it. If it's not theologically sound, they won't do it. But what if I don't know that?
Yeah.
What if I don't know the genuine article?
And that's one of those things that, as we're pursuing it, it's come together so quickly. I'm so thrilled. The one thing that I would point out to, and I know it was something that we sent to you, was this is the landscape of evangelism, the local church across the country. This is not a particular denomination. This is getting them all together. And what I looked at is B and C. That's churches roughly running from 100 to 1,000.
Wow.
There's 117,000 of those churches across the country. 117,000. They're ministering to 34 million Americans every Sunday on average. And what I also saw is that they're growing. They're not growing as fast as the larger churches, but they're not going anywhere. So that is the area that we've seen the most demand for the worship leader, the student pastor, and of course, production is across the board. So that's where we're trying to help. There's 30,000 open positions between churches running 100 and 1,000, and most of those churches of that category have stopped looking because you can't find them.
And you know what blows me away, just to kind of give all of you out there listening. So that's and you said that from 100 to 1,000. 35 million people are in those churches. If you get to the super mega, which is 10,000 plus, that's only 700,000 people.
Which is a great amount of people.
Yeah, but look over here.
Right.
I mean, but it's nowhere near 35 million.
That's where we're trying to really help. It's the backbone of our country,
right.
And that's where we're trying to target all of our training, all of our placement is in those type churches.
Yeah, and because that's where most people go to worship every Sunday.
Yep.
You know, because if you see you'll see a super mega church and that feels like, but you don't understand there's nowhere near as many of those as there are the small to medium.
Yeah, and like we're thankful for them because they're ministering close to 1 million people every single weekend. Praise the Lord for that.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say though, go back to the beginning.
They're not the ones that need these people as much as the small to medium.
Right. In those county seat towns, in those rural areas, in those urban situations, we're trying to be there going, hey, we want you to be able to learn the message. The methods may change where we get to, but if you know the message and you know the principles that work, you're going to be able to go into any situation and reach students or reach people and train up leaders to develop your team.
So what do I need to do? If I want to know more about the Strength of Stand Institute, do I just go to the website? We have that for you. It's stsinstitute.org.
Yep.
All the information's there?
You can go there. You can send me an email or just get in touch with Kelly, our admissions director. Mm-hmm. We just want to help you. And we're doing preview nights so that we can kind of give an indication of what's going on. There's one actually the night that we're recording this, and there's going to be several more. Just come and check us out and see if this couldn't be an option.
I just want to tell you that's a typo right there. It's actually Strength to Stand Institute. It says Strength of Stand. So Strength to Stand Institute, stsinstitute.org. All the information there.
We don't teach English. We don't teach English.
That's not part of the curriculum.
No, that's not part of ministry.
So go there, and if say you're in the audience right now. There's a reason you're hearing this message. Now, all of us can be informed about the state of the church and the needs of the church, and God's called your ministry once again to say, here's a solution. But there may be a reason that you've ended up here. Maybe this is you. Maybe you thought, I don't think the traditional path for me to get into student ministry, that I'm able to do that. Maybe in worship leader, production ministry, soon to be children's ministry. The demand is there, but the people are few.
Yep.
And this is an opportunity. I will tell you this: you go to the Strength to Stand Institute, you come out of there with your certification, you're gonna go to work.
Yep. Yep, and it's not a degree, so we want to make sure.
Right.
But we feel like in the next 10 years, people aren't going to really worry about the paper on the wall.
No.
They're going to worry about the passion in your heart.
Oh, no. Look, again, we're not vilifying college.
No.
Please don't hear that. But I will tell you, and that's what you're finding with these three things, which is why the Institute is being created. When I stepped into the first radio station, I was never once asked where I graduated from. I was asked, what do you know how to do?
Yep. Competency.
What do you know how to do? Can you edit? Can you do this? Can you cut commercials? Can you run this show? And so what we're doing is equipping these people to go into these roles that churches all over America desperately need filled.
Yep. The fields are white into harvest.
I knew you were going to say that. I felt it coming. I almost said it first, but I thought, let the evangelist say it.
Well, let me say, I mean, you have the platform, and I appreciate you allowing me to come on and talk a little
We always
about
love
this.
listening. Yeah. So if you want to find out more, stsinstitute.org. And if I could just say a public service announcement from my brother, Scott Dawson. Stop bringing up the four-wheeler incident and give him a break. Okay?
It's over. It's over.
It was so
Let's
long.
move on.
It was
It's a new day.
It was so long ago.
The new show is going to bring so many new memories, man. And one of them is going to be Greg can't replay that four-wheeler story every single time you're on vacation.
You know what? I hadn't thought about that because the new show, all the stuff that Bubba and I did together won't be available for best of shows. But I got to warn you, though, that prank gone bad, it's on streaming services everywhere. And people will always be able to hear it on their own. I'm sorry, buddy. But anyway, but you're right. So we are looking forward to that. Like I say, we're thankful for everything we've already done, but super excited about what is next. So once again, stsinstitute.org for any information. Scott, always fun to hang out together.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so thankful for your friendship. I'm thankful for your investment in me, discipling me, and I'm excited about the things we're doing and really, really excited about what's ahead. So thanks to each and every one of you for joining us on this edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast.